The only thing constant is change in the 3D world, but in the 5D, the archetypes are constant. It looks like change, but it's really not change. It's just all your perspective. Let me tell you something. This looks like change, right? It looks change, but it's not really changing. Like this car, it's already happened before. It depends on your perspective. From a 3D perspective, it looks like change. But from a 5D perspective, it's just a sine wave. It's just all repeat. I saw a situation when I was younger, family member. I saw a family member marrying an engineer, electrical engineer. And the family member, I don't even know if they finished high school or not. I think maybe they did. And so you got a high school person and you got an engineer, and these two get married. One's educated, one's not, and these two get married. How do you think that worked out? It didn't work out. Now, if both of these people would have been saved, it doesn't matter. The educated man, if he was saved, and the wife was saved who was not educated, if he would have said, look, you want to go back to school? I'll pay for your school. She could have got educated. If they were saved, they could still get along. But when you see an educated person, an engineer, and an uneducated woman who just for the streets pretty much, because she thinks like the streets, she's just in survival mode. So you got an educated person who can look at life from different perspectives, and then you got an uneducated, and it could be the woman could be educated, but you got an engineer and you got an uneducated person who can't see life from different perspectives. How long is that gonna last? It ain't gonna last. And I watched it, and I noticed it in the real world. I married somebody who was a nurse, but she wasn't really, all she had to do was memorize stuff. She wasn't educated. Then I married another one that was totally not, I don't even know if she finished high school, but she said she was saved, but that didn't work out. I don't think. It was just too crazy, too much drama, and that didn't work out. And then I've seen it multiple times where you think, a person thinks that they know you or thinks that they love you or whatever, and then you really start to get to know the person, and you just can't think like them. I hate to tell you this, but a college educated person thinks different than a high school dropout or just a high school. I hate to be that way, and I mean, if you're saved, it's a different story, but I promise you, when you go to college and you get a college degree and you go through all the classes, there's a difference between a college educated person and not. And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just telling you the truth. You can tell Joe Rogan never went to college. You can tell Alex Jones never went to college. You can just tell. Because you have to train yourself, especially if it's engineering or math or physics or stuff like that. You have to train your mind to think. One of the biggest changes in getting educated is moving from a static mindset to a steady state, from like algebra and basic math to calculus, because calculus talks about the transient state, the velocity, right? The first derivative is velocity, the second derivative is acceleration. And if a person can't think like that, they're still in the static state. They haven't even stepped to the next, much less they don't know their Bible. But second of all, they don't even understand moving from static from like just steady state to velocity to the first derivative, second derivative. They don't understand that. So you're talking on a different level than them, and they can't hear you. Now look at all these cars sitting here. Now what's that about? So somebody with a math degree, I see the patterns, and then learning my Bible, I see bigger patterns. And so when you talk to people that are not really educated, not only not educated in the system, but not educated in the Bible. And so when you talk to people that are just dumb, how you gonna be yoked up with that? How you gonna be yoked up with something like that? I might even go back to school now. I really been thinking about going to school and learning Spanish, But people, they'll see me do something. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, I started a mailbox business a long time ago and I made a lot of money. I made more money doing that than anything. And she says, well, who told you about the mailbox? I said, I didn't need anybody to tell me. I knew the need, and I knew the government forced you to have mailboxes, so I used my own mind, my own entrepreneurship mind to invent a business, and I created a business, and I had people around me that were the non-educated said, that'll never work, but they didn't think like me. When you think like an engineer, a mathematician, you think statistically, you think outside the box of the average person. And it's really amazing when you rub shoulders with somebody who's not really educated and you're trying to tell them something that's just like basic, normal human decency, and they can't even figure that out. And you say, okay, birds of a feather flock together, adios. I can't be a part of that. Ignorance is not my cup of tea. Ignorance is not my cup of tea. And I know it sounds mean, but it is what it is. I had to work. People say, well, you had that. No, I had to work my way through college. I worked my way through college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I said, I want a better life. Then I found out the jobs are not necessarily a better life. But getting saved, after I got out of college, I got saved, born again, and then I went to the Bible and I quit a good job. I had a really good job. I had a secretary and all that stuff. I had a real good job. But I got saved, and that job, the owner was Mormon, and I said, you know what, I don't want to work for a Mormon. I was a new believer, but I should have just stayed there. But I'd rather be working with my hands and doing my own little side businesses and stuff. I don't know why I talked about that, and I'm not bad-mouthing somebody who's not educated, because there's a lot of saved people who are self-educated. But I've watched it my whole life, where you're talking to somebody and they don't really have the ability to use logic. In engineering, you take a logic class, and most people don't have the ability to use logic. They can't even be introspective and use logic, And it's really sad. And it's like a lot of people, because they're not using logic, they're just going by emotions. They just keep going around the mountain, round the mountain, round the mountain. But logic is logos. Jesus is the logos, and he's logical. So if you get saved, you should be able to educate yourself, because you got the Holy Spirit. And you can learn anything. Programming, math, science. A saved person has the mind of Christ. And you'll find out that all the education system leads a circle to nowhere. Without Jesus, all the education of man leads you nowhere. But it's good to have that, Moses was educated in the Egyptian system, so he knew the Egypt. But for 40 years he was under Egypt. He left, went out in the wilderness, and learned from God, and then he came back for 40 more years. Let my people go. He came back, said, "Let my people go." Did his thing. My point is, I learned I learned Babylon's teachings. I know math, I know science, I know all that stuff. Programming, I know it all. I don't know everything, don't get me wrong. But my point, I'm not trying to be prideful, but I'm saying I've studied the overarching view. I'm not being prideful. I know there's people way smarter than me that are geniuses. I'm in the top 20%. I'm not in the top 10 or 5%. But I've studied it enough to know that Babylon just takes you around a mountain to nowhere. And as you go around that mountain to nowhere, it gets old like everything else. And then you finally run to Jesus, because I got a college degree and it still didn't fulfill. And I was still trying to study Plato and Socrates and logic and all that stuff. But until I got saved, I was not fulfilled on the inside. I was running here. I was lonely, But even when you're saved, if you're by yourself, you're never lonely. You know? Look at the back of that card. Jesus, Acts 2:38. Whether you're educated, not educated, rich, poor, male, female, young, old, if you run to Jesus and get saved, He will give you the wisdom that is above this place, above Babylon. He will give you wisdom that you can't even believe, and is hidden in plain view. Everything is right here, right now. So my striving and my hard work, going to the library every day, studying engineering and math and physics and Ohm's law and E is equal to R and the Kirchhoff's voltage law and all those Ohm's law, Kirchhoff's voltage law, all that stuff was fine. But the inside wasn't right. And then at 24 years old, I got born again. And then I looked at Egypt and all their teachings and I spit on it. I said, this is a hill of beans. I told a friend of mine, I said, I wasted all them years in college. I got saved. I could have been doing, winning souls. And this was a long time ago. He said, well, think about though, your college helped you. It really helped you because you can see, you've done a lot of different jobs and you see things from different perspectives. And I started thinking about that. I said, yeah, that's true. Everything that you go through in life helps you. Whether you're educated, not educated, whether you're good on your trade or whatever you're doing, if you use it and learn from it and get saved, it was a path to Jesus. It could be relationships, it could be family. You could have been raised in a bad family, you could be raised in a good family, you could be raised in a cult. There's a lot of people raised in a cult, they get saved out of a cult. It's hard for a person to leave a cult. Now why? I thought about this the other day. My first wife, she was in her family's Pentecostal cult, and there was no way she was leaving. I really think she probably did love me in a weird way, in her own way, but she couldn't be torn away from that family. And if you read Genesis, Adam and Eve became a new unit. But that cult is such a strong pull. Even if a woman loves a man in this society, the cult family is such strong, she will not leave that cult. The money cult, the world, the flesh, pride of life. The money, look, if you really love somebody, like the Bible says, leave mother and father and cleave, right? Not leave that job, leave that city, leave that state, leave that country. If you really love somebody, and love is what all this is about, right? Who cares where you live? You can get a job over here. You can get a job over here. You can build a house over here. You can build a business over here. It don't matter where you're at. If it's love, you will go anywhere for that, right? Though a man give all his treasures for love is nothing. Or something. There's a verse in the Bible that says, if a man he could give all his treasures for something. If he doesn't have love, he would give all his treasures for love, right? My point is, you learn after you go through the education system. You go through whatever Babylon gives you, careers, jobs, CEO, whatever. If you don't have love, what good is it? I'm not prideful at all, because I know there's people way smarter than me in this world. But God gave me some wisdom from His Word, because that's all I studied for many years. That's all. I mean, really, after I got saved, that's all I did is stay in the Word ever since. I haven't stopped. I'm just meditating on truth all the time, praying, meditating on truth. I might not pray like you think, but I'm sitting here just thinking in my mind, Lord, what does that mean? What does that mean? I'm decoding. I'm rightly dividing it. I'm throwing it in. Where does that fit? Is that in Galatians? Is that Corinthians? What is it? What is this place? You're actually in the Bible. And so I could go back to school and get a master's degree in electrical engineering and make $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year doing programming or whatever, but I don't want to do that. It's boring sitting in a stupid cube. It's boring. It's not my calling. It's not who I am. The best job I ever had was the Uber Lyft, rideshare stuff because I was free. I could turn the app on, cut it off, and plan my day. I would have never, when I used to see taxi drivers, I thought, that's got to be a terrible job. But it's the best job ever because you're totally free. And you just have continuous work. You just turn the app on and it's just cash flow. And what you could do in your life, which is what I did, you can have daily cash, weekly cash, and monthly cash. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources of income right now. Soon I'm gonna have 6. And they say if you have 7, you're rich, which I already am rich because I have everything I need and I have cash flow. And so if you got health, health is wealth. And if your mom never told you that, or your grandmother, or your dad, if they never said health is wealth, why are you gonna kill yourself for some stupid corporation who, when you end up in the hospital, you won't ever see them? When I leave this corporation, there's nobody that I work with that I'll ever see again. When you leave the corporation, include myself, I'll never see these people. They're not there for you. If I'm sick, I can't call them. If you go to the hospital and a person who claims to be real in your world and you can't contact them at 24/7, not that you would call them all the time, they're not real. They might be some kind of friend online or something, but where are they at in the real world? You see what I'm saying? My point is, you got to wake up to what's real in this place. And as soon as you wake up to the fake reality bubbles that people are creating, the fake reality bubbles that people are in, and you wake up to the real, you're going to try the spirits. You're going to test the spirits. And you're not only going to test other people's spirits, but you're going to test yourself. Is this real? Am I being pulled into the fake reality bubble? Is it even real? Are they real? What kind of world have they created? What kind of bubble have they created? Is it a bubble created on truth, or is it a bubble created on lies? And you have to ask yourself, do you want to be yoked up with something that way? And growing up, I would see people, they would act, this person would come in, they'd act different. This person would come in, they'd act different around everybody. And it's like, this was a family member. I remember waking up and I thought, why does she act different around these different people? Because she was fake. She was fake. She would say about everybody else, they're full of shite, but she was the one that was fake. She would blame everybody else, but she was the faker. Long story short, I know I started it out sounding like I was in pride, but I'm trying to tell you that I did educate myself in the Babylonian system, and I know it. Physics, math, science, logic, algebra, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, advanced math. I know what it's about, quantum physics, but it's nothing. It's a hill of beans compared to scripture and Bible and spiritual knowledge. So you can be uneducated, never graduate high school, get born again, and you know more than Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is probably not even saved. If you're born again and you apply your mind and your spirit to know, rightly divide that word, you know more than Elon Musk. And it would be a shame for him to wake up burning in hell and all that he did down here. And you know he's part of the 666 system. Anybody that says you're going to Mars is lying through their teeth. They are a deceiver. Nobody's going to Mars. I hate to tell you.